Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Wise Women Roundtable for the August cross quarter that we are coming up on in the next 3 days from the time of this recording. Super exciting, the exact zodiacal cross quarter. I know many people will have celebrated on August 1st with that amazing Aquarius full moon that we had. But the point where the sun reaches 15 degrees Leo is the halfway point between the June solstice and the September equinox. And that's the exact zodiacal cross quarter. And that does shift over time. So it may be that it was one time, it was the 1st of August, and now it's shifted to the 7th of August. And one of the things about the cross quarter that I really love is that any cross quarter is a between time. It's between seasons. It's like that exact midpoint between the beginning of one season and the beginning of another season. So it's a powerful time of alchemy. The between is where the alchemists would have found that they could do their greatest ceremonial magic, so to speak. So the cross quarter points are really powerful for that. And as we come into the August cross quarter exact on the 7th, it actually comes in to 1 degree on the 6th. It's exact on the 7th, and then it will leave 1 degree sometime on the 8th. And so that is the 8/8 calendar date. And I know a lot of people get geeky about this, 8/8 Lionsgate. Interestingly, yes, the sun is in Leo, but it's not in the constellation of the Lion on 8/8. It doesn't go into the constellation of the Lion for a couple more days. And then it's just barely kind of on the edge of the Lion at that point. So when this calendar that we have was created in the late 1500s and became known as the Gregorian calendar after Pope Gregory, they created it, and they actually inserted 2 months into the calendar, July and August. And July is after Julius Caesar, and it has 31 days, and August is after Augustus Caesar, and it has 31 days, because they both wanted to have their months named after them in the summer, and they wanted 31 days in their month. So again, this is constructed calendar that's not based on seasons, it's not based on anything. And so, and it doesn't have anything to do, like September, Sep is for 7. It's supposed to be the 7th month. October is supposed to be the 8th month. November is supposed to be the 9th month, and December is supposed to be the 10th month, because that's what those names imply. But because they inserted the calendar names in front of that, then they're not actually representing the 7, 8, 9, 10 that they did at one time before the Gregorian calendar was instituted. So 8/8 is kind of made up too. the eighth month, the 8th day. It's just made up. It's a made up thing. But whatever we put our attention on, whatever we focus on, will have meaning. And a lot of people put a lot of meaning on this supposed 8/8 Lionsgate. I like to call it the 8/8 infinity time gate. And when we look at where the sun is, it's not in the Lion yet. And when we look at where the sun is, like say 8/17, which is like another 8/8 day, and 8/26, another 8/8 day, the sun is moving is into the Lion, and will be way into the Lion by 8/26. So that is just so that you have that sense of it. And one of the things this always brings up for me, if we think about 8/8 infinity and infinity time gate, it's all about the illusions of time. Our whole calendar is an illusion. So how, and how we are living in time. So if we didn't have calendars and clocks in the way that we do, we might have a completely different experience of time on a day-to-day basis. But since we have the calendar, since we have the clock, then we have a more linear experience of time. And one of the things that hopefully we're helping to inspire here is that there's ways to have a more cyclical relationship with time, and going into those spaces that are outside of time. So maybe that's part of what we can energize as we look at the 8/8 infinity time gate. As that. And so while we're coming into this time, Venus is retrograde, and just I will put in the show notes that if you haven't seen it, the any Venus retrograde, I did a 20-minute video on any Venus retrograde, the 3 phases of the Venus retrograde, where it starts in the evening sky, it goes with the sun and rises in the morning sky. It's about a 40-day cycle, and how many mainstream people, even astrologers and so on, think that it's a time when Venus is diminished. She's not at her greatest strength, but the actual reality is Venus is brightest. She's most illuminated in the evening sky. Then she's with the sun for a few days, and then she rises up in the morning sky, brightest. And that's where they would start the new Venus cycle, when they could see her rise in the morning sky, because you could not miss her. She was so bright. She's so close to the earth, and she's so powerful. In actuality, the other thing that was happening in some cultures, particularly the Mayan, the Aztec cultures, when Venus rose as morning star, that's when they set their armies marching. They saw Venus as a war god, or they would do their blood sacrifices, because it was such a powerful moment to them, and that's how they decided to work with it. Of course, we don't want to do that these days. But there's a whole document, that an article that was written on Venus regulated warfare, that speaks into all of these things about how they worked with Venus in this intense way. But that lets us know that we can work with Venus in another way. So Venus is going to rise as morning star on August 19th. She's going to be conjunct the sun exact on August 13th. She leaves the evening sky. For some people, she's probably already left, but technically she leaves on August 6th. And in that 8-8, or in the August cross quarter gate. So Venus is a big player this entire month, and she rises as morning star, and then she goes direct on September 3rd, and she's beginning this new journey, this new initiatory cycle. Very powerful, very amazing, in the archetypal energy of Leo, where we're learning to take our self-love to the next octave. For some people, they just need to learn self-love because they don't have it. For some people, it's like they've been working on it, and now we can take it to the next level. So we've got that. And then on August 23rd, we've got Mercury going retrograde in Virgo. So it's not in Leo, but it's in the Lion. It'll be in the Lion. So it'll be retrograding back through the Lion, passing the stars that it just passed. And so one of the ways to look at the Mercury retrograde, and I'll put also a link to a video on any Mercury retrograde, how to work with it. It's like for any retrograde, it's like the planet has passed across certain stars in the sky. It stops, and it doesn't actually stop, doesn't actually go retrograde, just appears to from the Earth's perspective. Then it goes back over those same stars, it stops, and then it starts going forward again. And it's like taking a deeper look. It's going into a deeper look into something. That's what's going on. It's gathering power, it's gathering information, it's gathering insight, so that it can go forward in a really much more conscious, intelligent, thoughtful kind of way. So we got that happening. And one of the thoughts I'm having about all this is like, this is so much alchemy that's taking place right now, that if we can take some time during this time, as we approach the September equinox, that to just step back, that's in a way we could say, I often think of the retrograde as like, I've been hiking, I'm going down this trail, and then I see something out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, whoops, I got to go back and look at that more closely. It's like, can we step back and just go back and look at something more closely and see how that is unfolding for us, or what information or insight that might be there for us around taking that deeper look. So with that, I think I'll turn this over to my dear priestess sister, Sarah, to see what she has to say about what's going on.
Thank you, Nalini. Thank you, Kayla. Sorry. Engaged brain. I was mesmerized there in the zones. Yeah, so interesting what you're saying about Venus retrograde, because I was born in a Venus retrograde, and I don't really know what that means. I mean, I understand what it means technically. I think this is the first Venus retrograde that I have been through consciously. and it's not at all what I expected it to be. This past cycle for me has been hugely healing, actually, and I see it actually being that for many, many people. Way it's been working for me and clients and people that I see around me is that I'm going to use, again, these words quite consciously. There's a lot of trauma being activated, not necessarily triggered, but just moving through things in more conscious ways, and engaging with them in very real 3D ways, just like, getting out of our own ways and saying I had a weekend last weekend with some of my clients who work with me with flower essences, and we spent the weekend together online. And it was so healing. And one of the biggest ways it was healing for me too is that we just talked about the real way that this is happening and how we're really feeling and how it's pretty messy on the ground. And just seeing that in each other and seeing that that's how it is. You don't necessarily get to a part where you're kind of like completely, this doesn't happen to me anymore. You just see it. You're maybe there, but just experiencing it differently. So there has been a lot of that trauma. I'm just going to use, these are my words right now, trauma activation going on this month, and I've seen it around me. My way through of it has been very much with deep, deep trust. And it's something that I've worked with a lot. We've done things in our life. Well, I've done things in my life that have been massively based on trust. My partner and I have done lots of things in our lives that have been massively based on trust, like moving to France was an example. This month, that trust went really onto the inner level. And every time I was just like, what on earth, how and why, and oh my goodness, and all the things. I just kept hearing a voice within me just saying, trust, just drop down into your heart and trust. Keep going, don't stop, don't give up. I kept hearing those words as well, don't give up, trust. And I was like, okay. And interestingly, after Venus went retrograde, everything changed. And the trust that I had been hearing to wait for things, is like my world started to feel kinder, and I started to see that these openings started to happen. And I'm seeing it a lot with people, myself and people that I'm working with. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz, and we go down the yellow brick road and there's this amazing thing at the end. But actually, this amazing thing is just this little thing with a big curtain over it. It's just this, it's really what we've been looking for. And I know we know this is a cliche, but we kind of go towards these things and then we get there and there's kind of an emptiness there. That's what I've been experiencing. And the reflection back is that the emptiness is just an indication that I have to go and find it in myself. And so I've been seeing that again and again and again this month within myself and within others. We've had some very beautiful experiences here locally in France, and I hope to share more as it evolves. There's nothing else I can share more than just say the new is coming. It's just there, totally there. There's some extraordinary things being birthed. But because they're in the sort of womb stages, and maybe even the beginning birth stages, it's just normal things are being kept sacred so that they can grow. So I've also witnessed that. And so when I pondered today, it was like, what essence can I bring today? And I just heard your own essence. If you're looking for an essence to help you, there are many we could take for sure, and I take them all the time. But what I was guided to share today is like, if you need an essence, take your own. Go within as best you can. Remember, this is messy right now. Do what you can. And even if it's just like a fleeting second, trust yourself, trust the things that are outpitching around you, and drink of your own essence, drink of your own love, drink of your own kindness, drink of your own self-compassion, because there really is nowhere else to go. People can offer a kind hand out to us, which is always welcome, obviously, and collaboration and working together is always going to be our way forward. But actually, the most healing space that we can ever be in is just to be with our own essence and to know it's there, and to sit in it. So thank you for the thank you for the opportunity for me to allow to voice that. So Nalini, I pass over to you.
Well, that about says it, doesn't it? This I noticed, because I'm chronicling the lunations of this year, the full moons. I noticed at the full moon that what had been brought deep during July was being ignited this month. And so I always pay attention to numbers and things, and then they go right out of my head. But I did notice that the full moon was at 9 and something Aquarius, and 9 is the goddess number, and one of them. And it's also in the traditional tarot, the Hermit, and it's the last single digit of the major arcana, which indicates that a cycle is ending, but also that one is beginning. And when I sat with this, and when I was sitting this morning, not a lot was coming through. I don't think much. So when things do come through, I get to notice them. It's one of the gifts. But it has to do with that inner wisdom, exactly what Sarah and Kaylin were just talking about, that welling up from within us, and our willingness to be with that. It's not a reaching for or a diving and searching for, it's a being with that. The inner fires are creating and honing and refining the inner wisdom. And we all have it. It lives there within all of us, and it is throughout and permeates all of the events of our lives, all of the event-driven school of learning. And once we notice that, then it becomes a more consciousness cycle of, oh, okay, that's how that felt, and this is what's left over, and we're all going through that right now. And then there comes a third cycle where we simply observe. And we look at, okay, this is this is that phrase, here endeth the lesson. It's like, this is where, okay, these were the lessons we came in to teach ourselves. And Source said, okay, because she always does. We say, I want to learn this, and Source says, yes. And we say, I am sad, and Source says, yes, okay. And we say, I am miserable, and Source says, well, okay, if that's cool for you. And but then when we say, just I am, there's a phrase, and actually it comes from a fiction book, but I always loved it. It's, Mother made me, I am she. And it speaks to that goddess wisdom that's within all of us, male or female. I find that is not coming into a balance on the world right now, but it's taking over. Because it needs to. And this isn't about an either or of any kind, gender or otherwise. It's because this is what nourishes. This is what is sustainable. This is what needs to be. And this is all coming up through each of us as this amazing cosmic nurturing wisdom, if we simply are that essence and listen to that. I was born with Venus retrograde as well, so there's an affinity here, and we are all priestesses of various ilks here, so we have that in common. But I think what we also have in common is there is a heart line direct with, through, and as the Great Mother. And whatever your definition is, anybody, it's probably wrong, it's probably limited, but just letting that, being that, letting that come through and being that. One of the things I have been inwardly taught for all these decades is absolutely listen to that, be that. And every avatar, every enlightened one, every so-called master has said the same thing. Different ways, because different people will understand it. When I was pondering that a few days ago, what Source said to me was, perhaps it takes 1 million voices for billions of ears to hear. And I think the same thing applies to the planets, the stars. Everything has a resonance, a radiation, a vibration, and we all resonate with or around or not as we are designed inherently. So it's finding that inherent design, and that is just being fired and fed and fueled at the moment. I mean, look at the planet. Sarah mentioned it. Look at France. Look at Iceland with the volcanoes erupting. Look at Canada, where the whole, hell western part is on fire. Look at Yellowstone. I mean, all these things where Gaia herself is mirroring not our process, but she's going through the process that is the firing of the inner wisdom, forging something that is absolutely authentic and sovereign and in a non-egoic way whatsoever. So I'm grateful to be here as well, and to be able to add Source's voice as me to whatever this is. So with that, I will pass the torch to Elizabeth.
Thank you. I love what everyone said, and glad to be back at our table here, and loving that there's some continuity for all of us coming into the I am present. From my perspective, trying to both go through the personal experience of discovering my I am, and in this lifetime having a very unique look at it, and that opportunity, of course, that we get invited into these lifetimes to do that, to fine-tooth comb through not only I keep having this kind of funny image pop up, so I'm just going to describe it. It's sort of like the past 12,000 years, humanity in this cycle, as we've been in the dark, literally, because we've been facing as a solar system the galactic sheet, which is full of all sorts of dense stuff and material, and it's cut us off from the galactic light. And as we go through the 12,000 year yuga cycles, we peak up above that same sheet that blocks us from the galactic center. And so we're coming out, we're ascending into to start getting, and literally measurably getting, more light from the inner part of the galaxy. And each time humanity goes through these events in these long games that we're doing in consciousness, we have that chance to go through really dense dark times, like we literally called it the Dark Age. That was right smack in the middle, as we were completely cut off from all the light of the galactic center. And so now we're coming out of it, and that has all this impact on the consciousness of our solar system itself, our bodies, our planet. But that during those times, we tend to try to get by in consciousness, and we'll weave. I keep seeing like a sort of poorly knit sweater in consciousness. And eventually, as the light comes back on, as Venus comes back up to shine her brightest, as all of us start to realize who we are, that we are of the divine will, and that the personal self, who's been trying to get by for however many decades, perhaps even many lifetimes, now can actually start to see itself. The light is bright enough for you to now look in the mirror and say, holy cow, this sweater's terrible. I don't want to wear this anymore. This is what you're telling me motherhood is, and this is what you're telling me, how to do blank and how to be human, and this sucks. So then you got to go through and find the part of it that is you, because you're part of this poorly made sweater that then defines culture and defines society. But as you find for yourself your part in this, your thread, you can take hold of it and then begin to take yourself in your fullness with love, because you don't thrive. You haven't thrived in the matrix. You can't. It's a poorly made system. It's a poorly made structure. And so as you pull yourself out of this, because you love yourself, and given that opportunity to just start with that I am, and I exist, then we start to, and I think that that's where the innovation is coming in, is we start to let the rest of it fall apart. And so it'll look like personal events where you're cutting people off finally, or it'll look like taking breaks from certain things that you've been doing, or resigning, or joining something new, or it'll look like all of those things. It'll look like your entire business changing. It's going to look like, you know, getting fired or quitting or getting elected to something new that you didn't before. It's going to look like those opportunities. And the rest of the sweater, you know, everybody's got to take their part, and some people are going to do it at different paces than others. But if you're aware that you don't want to live in this mess that was constructed over 12,000 years that has to dissolve, then in order to move forward, you have to know what your sovereign self is. And that sovereign self is of source, because if you follow that thread, where are you going to end up? If you really follow it, if you follow it to its ends, it goes in through you. Yes, that's where it comes out of, but that's not where it originated. It always originates back home with the divine. And I love that the mother energy is coming up so much, the goddess, because at least for myself, that was how I connected best to God, was through Mother Mary. I was raised Christian, so deeply Catholic, actually. So this love for Mother Mary was actually more prominent for myself than Christ or Jesus. I was like, Jesus is cool, but Mary's the one who holds me, loves me, hugs me, wipes my tears. Mary's the one who catches me when I fall. That loving goddess energy, the divine mother. And of course, how the planet Earth herself and many of the other planets surrounding us maintain that sovereign, pure, loving energy that is of source, cannot be destroyed. It is the source of all things. And you're of that. So when you fall back into, and when you find that thread in yourself, you find yourself and you start to love yourself, you're going to find that there's another pair of arms wrapped around you as you fall deeper into becoming source. And there she is. She's been there the whole time, holding you, loving you, excited for you to love yourself as much as she loves you. And then that love becomes one love. So how this will begin to nurture innovation is very exciting. But of course, we have to watch that sweater unravel, and you got to get naked, because you can't wear the roles anymore that worked with that sweater. Nothing's, you know, there's not any outfits anymore from the past that you could wear that would make that sweater look good. So you're going to have to take a different direction, be willing to get naked and look in the mirror truly and find that love for yourself. And it may look for you like very social events. It may look like certain things in your career, or your relationship with the land, or your children, or your pets. All of these things will open up, because they are all reflections of you in the end too. So I think that the innovation part is something I've been keeping my eye on, and I'm excited as well too. But I agree with Sarah, a lot of this is being nurtured. It's like an egg that needs to continue to incubate, and at some point in time, probably a well-known point in our star time, there very well be a breakthrough where that egg cracks open. And we will see the finalization of all of what looks like the unrest on the planet turn into that very visceral burst of change and light in a very large instance that's going to be planetary too. So we're here for this. We're here for this jump in evolution, and the I am self is where we start. And learning once again how to love that. It's, if you can focus on anything, that's what we've brought to the table, I think, all of us, these pieces. So thank you so much. All very well said and lovely. I look forward to the innovation and the healing power of all of this love.
Thank you, everyone. And
Good.
self-love is what it's all about. Beautiful.